Welcome everybody to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show with myself, Aaron, and Tom. And if you're not seeing me tonight, there's some technical difficulties on my end as far as camera goes. But all three of these other gentlemen look scrappingly good tonight. And we want to welcome them to the show. We got Aaron Silvers and J.R. Huffman along with us once again to break down the 2022 Men's Wrestler of the Year category. We had a lot of fun with Kimmy. Tom and I did whenever we did our women's, and there was a lot of different opinions, and I really liked that show a lot because we could see where everyone was going with their picks, and we didn't really disagree with it too much. There was just some little bit of tidbits that kind of, helped it out, push one person above the other for each of us. But gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, doing well. Trying to catch up on some NXT as it's going on, and doing pretty well.
You are?
I'm doing really good. I'm ready to share my top five. I've switched them around probably more than I have anything in my house.
And as far as as we're going on to video this, we don't know a lot of details yet, but condolences out to Jay Briscoe. One of the Briscoe brothers passed away. Looks like this evening. Not sure what happened. To be honest, don't really need to know what happened. It's a sad situation all around. So condolences out to him and all of his friends and family. Definitely a fantastic wrestler for Ring of Honor and all across the world. So rest in peace to him. But let's get to this 2022. And JR, I'm going to start off with you. Who is your number 5 men's wrestler of the year?
All right. So we'll get right into this. I was actually talking to my wife, and she said, just out of curiosity, who did you choose? I'm like, well, you didn't watch wrestling much. She's like, well, I hope you put in Sami Zayn. And I looked at my list, and I was like, there's no way I left him off. But number 5 for me is Sami Zayn. He's injected himself into about every storyline over the year. No, he doesn't have any titles, and he hasn't. But there's no way that we could exclude him from being one of the wrestlers of the year, whether it be storyline, whether it be on the mic work, whether it be ring work. Sammy's just an all-around Swiss Army knife that I just had to put him at my number 5 spot there.
Yeah, definitely a big year for Sammy. I'll get into him in a little bit. Anyone want to say something about Sammy real quick, or is everybody going to get into Sammy here in just a little bit?
I'll get into him.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and speak on this one a little bit. I definitely agree with Sammy in the top 5. He's not in my top 5, but it was very heavy on my mind as far as whether I should have been or not. JR, you're right. He definitely didn't hold any titles this year, but he was in every major storyline. Talk about crowd pops, crowd reaction, just the simple word of feeling oozy. Who'd have thought that something like that would have got over? So whenever you got a talent that can do that and put himself with a crew that's called himself the Bloodline because they're family, he's A+ in my book. Definitely not my top 5, but he is not far from there.
I'll talk about him a little bit here later.
All right. Same with me. Tom, you're number 5.
So my number 5 is Josh Alexander from Impact. So when I look at everything that's going on in the wrestling world and I look at what work that he's doing over there, I believe he's now the longest reigning Impact champion of all time, longer than Bobby Lashley. He's putting in some great work over there. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I'm super shocked that AEW didn't pick him up when they picked up Ethan Page. There may have been some other stuff going on I don't know about, but I'm really surprised he's not working for WWE or AEW. He's such a great worker. And I think he's all around. He's got all the tools that you need to be a successful pro wrestler / sports entertainer. So I put him at number 5 on my list.
He did not make my top 5 list, but he is someone that I was very shocked actually re-signed with Impact because I figured a lot of big-time companies were going to start coming after him. He's kind of the total package in a way. He's very strong. He's very athletic. and he's believable in what he does. He's definitely been a great world champion for Impact because he's believable, and that's one of the things that I think Impact loses sometimes. Nothing against the Eric Youngs, nothing against the Eddie Edwards pipes sometimes. Sometimes you just got to have a guy who's just 100% believable. And I'm not trying to, for people out there, I'm not trying to say that if I was to meet Eric Young or Eddie Edwards, he could kick my ass. I'm just saying when you look at some of the other world champions across the board, you want to see somebody who kind of stacks up if you were to ever have a super card. And I think Josh Alexander's that guy. It's a great pick, Tom. JR?
Oh yeah, Josh Alexander actually originally was on my honorable mentions list. He's got one of the greatest nicknames there is, the walking weapon. I mean, you can't argue with that. I disagree a little bit with Tom's pick as far as like having been all around. I think he lacks a little bit on mic skills. That's just my opinion. But as far as like being in the top five, he is one of the best pro wrestlers that there is. And with that label of having been the longest Impact Wrestling World Champion, I mean, you can't argue with that. Good pick.
Aaron, thoughts on Josh Alexander?
Yeah, so I'll get to him in just a few minutes, actually. So we'll put that on hold.
All right, so we'll go to your number 5, Aaron.
Yeah, my number 5 right now for this past year has to be Gunther, formerly known as Walter. Gunther has been shot up to the main roster this past year. He's held the Intercontinental title since June, still holds it today, going strong, putting over just about everybody they put in front of him. I mean, he's had great matches with Ricochet, Sheamus, of course, just Braun Strowman last week. Major matches he's been in the main event. I don't know how many times. I've lost count of how many times he's defended in the main event this past year. But Gunther, I think we all knew coming from NXT UK that he was going to be somewhat of a force in the years to come. But now he's finally got his shot. He's on SmackDown, and he's sort of a mainstay at this point. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, I love Gunther. He didn't make my top 5. He's someone that I really wish that they'll continuously push because he's another one of those guys that's really believable. I loved all of his work as Walter, and I'm with you. I just think that the sky's the limit for him. Hopefully whoever takes over the company anytime soon sees that and sees what they kind of got with him. I like Imperium. I think all three of those guys kind of fit well together.
Yep.
I do think there's a little disconnect sometimes, and this is weird, with foreign wrestlers, European wrestlers on the main roster sometimes to fans. For example, I don't know if Gunther was a babyface, if they would be behind him as much as they are like a Sheamus or a Drew McIntyre. He's definitely right there with them. And I would like to see him and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania this year. I think that would be a good matchup for Lesnar as Gunther. So, Tom, your thoughts on Gunther?
Yeah, he's an amazing talent, and I think that he's got bigger things ahead of him. He didn't make my top 5, however, it's a fantastic pick. He just, when we do these lists, I shuffle mine around so many times. I don't know that he was definitely in my honorable mentions at first, and then I'm like, well, how many people can I give an honorable mention to? But he's definitely one of the top guys, and I think he will be for years to come. Kind of like what Aaron said, I just think there's a little bit of disconnect between the fans. I know he's a heel, but I don't think people really hate him, but I don't think they really love him. I think they appreciate his work and they enjoy him in his matches a lot, but I think there's just something missing there that is either going to make him an efficient heel or turn him babyface, one or the other. That's the only thing that's kind of a hang up for me with Gunther.
Yeah, your thoughts on Gunther?
Since Tom kind of alluded to it a minute ago, I will tell you, I will talk about him later in a secondary pick. But Gunther is, he's catching a lot of attention, a lot of the old school analysts. A lot of them see his ring work. He's very sharp. He's very tight. but he's also very stiff it looks very stiff when he's working. Um, when I first saw him as Walter, he caught my attention from day one. And I believe he's one of the best professional wrestlers that's had that probably inadvertent name change out of anybody that has had that name change and went with it. So I really like his work. It's different. It kind of has a little bit of a combination of old school and new school, and I really like his work. And I think he will be a good worker, a good hand going forward, and hopefully they push him a little bit more than uh, what he's expected to do in the future. But I think that's a great pick.
For my number 5, I went to the yin to the yang to that, and it's Sheamus for me. Um, Sheamus this year, after last few years, kind of being in purgatory after they kind of split him and Cesaro up, and he was in a feud with Drew McIntyre off and on a little bit. But for someone who was kind of, I felt left for dead, and just to be a good hand on the promotion, he really came through this year. I love the Brawling Brutes put together with him. He's getting fantastic crowd reactions everywhere he went. He had arguably one of the best matches of the year against Gunther at Clash at the Castle. And, I don't know what the plan for him going forward as far as teaming with Drew is. They're called the Banger Brothers or something right now. I'm not sure if that name's going to stick due to some other reasons, but he's had a fantastic year. And to be a former world champion, to kind of reinvent himself time and time again a little bit, and always remain one of the best and steady workers. He's easily somebody who could be on the underrated list every single year. Sheamus, he made my number 5 this year. Any of y'all's thoughts on Sheamus?
Yeah, so I mean, Sheamus, I can't agree with you more. He's had literally in his catchphrase the banger after banger after banger all year long, including one of the best matches at Clash of the Castle, if not the best. So I can't disagree. That's a great pick to start out that top 5.
Yeah, I totally agree. He didn't make mine, but Sheamus is somebody who, I always look at as he could be in the world title picture at any time. They could just get the storyline just right, and he'll be right there. He's just one of those guys, and he has put in the work this year. 100% agree with what you said there, but I can only pick 5, so he didn't make my top 5.
Yeah, and I feel the same way as Tom's sentiment. He is right there. If there was 3 mentions, he'd probably be right there in that. Sheamus always puts in 150% every time he steps out of that gorilla position. He always tries to level up the people he's working with and the people he's also working with in the ring. He's been around for a long time. If you didn't do your history and know that he's been a former world champion several times, he always is there. And again, great worker, always in the picture, and he levels everybody up that's with him. And he'll take the hits and he'll show it off. I love that about him.
We'll go reverse order here and back around. My number 4 guy is Jon Moxley this year. For somebody who was trying to go on vacation, was trying to take some time off, especially after the whole CM Punk debacle, he really came through for AEW when they needed him most. And he, even before that, he rebounded his career back to the way it should have been all along. And for that, Jon Moxley is my number 4. He's had fantastic matchups with people like Adam Heyman Page and, of course, Punk. So it's just one of those things. He's one of those guys every year. He could either be in my top 10 or he could not be in my top 10. It just depends on the booking as far as he goes. But this year and the way he stepped up and came back, I thought Jon Moxley deserved to be number 4. Anyone's thoughts?
Well, I don't want to just say ditto, but he's also my number 4 for the very same reasons. AEW went through a period where they were the highest of highs with Punk and all this stuff going on, and then he was gone in an instant. and Moxley was right there to steer the ship back in the right course. And I think he's not only done a great job on screen, but from what I understand, he's really taken the initiative backstage to try to help the younger talent. Um, so, if I try to look at all that, everything you said, I totally agree with 100%.
Anybody else on Moxley? Or are we?
Yes, I'll get to him. I'll get to him in just a little bit. But great pick.
Yeah, I'll get to him a little bit as well. I've got him on somewhere on my list, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I agree with all your sentiments on that.
All right, Aaron, you're number 4.
Yeah, mine is actually Josh Alexander. So I know we visited about him just a moment ago, but Josh Alexander for me, I don't get to watch Impact very often, but when I do, I know Josh Alexander is going to put on a show. He's been champ since April. He took the title off of Moose back in April. He's had some matches with Eric Young, Speedball Bailey, of course Moose. Just had a heck of a match. I know this is this year, but had a heck of a match with Bully Ray just last week. But he's carried that title since April, and really representing the Impact brand. So, I couldn't argue with the fact that he had to be in the top 5. And I put him at number 4 there. So really enjoy Josh Alexander.
Yeah, I think everyone good with Josh Alexander there. Anybody else got anything else to say about him? All right, so that'll be up to you, JR. Who is your number 4?
All right, I'm gonna bring a new name to the group, and that's Bron Breakker. I can't put him. I can't leave him out. The next few picks that I have could be switched around 2, 3, 4 in any order. Bron Breakker I believe he's going to be the one to take the title off of Reigns if potentially Mr. Cody Rhodes, American Nightmare, doesn't do that. If not, whoever's holding that title when he's moved up to the main roster and put in that spotlight, I believe Bron Breakker is going to be the man to do that. He's had a great year. The work rate is impeccable. He's always there. He always shows homage to his uncle and his dad. When NXT 2.0, I think everybody on the entire planet Earth hated that changeover from the black and the gold. But he stays true to his mission that he was to do, and he carried that splatter paint emblem or whatever it is. And I believe he is the next big superstar, and he's had an absolute amazing year, and that's why he makes my number 4 pick.
Go ahead, Tom, on Bron.
It's a great pick. Did not make my top 5, but he's right there. You talk about a guy as young as he is, as talented as he is, and he looks like he's been doing it just as long as some of them have been doing it for 20 years. I know he's probably still got little things to learn, and when he starts wrestling talent that do have a lot more experience, maybe we'll see a little bit. But to me, he just looks like a diamond right there that's ready for just to be blasted off, and he's going to be the big thing in the next few years. I really feel that way. So we'll see. He's a great pick.
Yeah, I think if you would asked me last year, I would have probably told you he'd be on my top 5 because I thought he'd be on the main roster, and I thought that they would be pushing him to the moon. But for some reason, those moves kind of stalled out a little bit. They did give him a little bit more better opponents this year. And that kind of worried me. That's why he didn't make my top 5, because he was put in the ring with such great people. The Tyler Bates, JD McDonough. I want to see Bron Breakker against the one person that he has to carry, if that makes sense. And that's what I'm looking for him in this next year, is to feud him against somebody where he has to be the one that carries the matchup, not to give him an indie veteran like an Apollo Crews or JD McDonough or Tyler Bate, guys that can go 100%. But he's a great pick, and I look forward to seeing him on my top 5 here in the near future. Aaron?
Yeah, so I'm going to discuss him in just a little bit, but I can't disagree with anything that's been said about him so far. So I'll give a little bit more 2 cents here shortly.
All right. back to you, JR, with your number three.
My number three is probably one of the most popular wrestlers on Monday Night Raw, if not the most popular, is Seth freaking Rollins. I want to put him lower down the pole, but he has pretty much carried Monday Night Raw in the times when they didn't have other people infused into that roster. Um, he never really had a face turn, but I would go out on a limb and say that he's probably the biggest baby face, if not one of the biggest baby faces that WWE has. Everyone comes out, they sing his song, they love him. He was elevated during those matches with Cody Rhodes, and he continues even after Cody, had to step away due to injuries to carry that brand on his back. And that's my personal opinion. And that's why he made my number three slot of the best wrestler of the year, title or not.
I'll be honest, Seth did not make my top five. In the ring, he's phenomenal. I love his character, but there was times this year I didn't understand if he was a heel or if he was a face, what he was, and he lost a lot this year. And so for me, that kind of kept me out of it. Never doubting the talent at all. I mean, he's definitely somebody who could take the number one spot on any given year if given the right push. I just didn't like the way that he was booked this year. Tom?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way you do. If we were doing a top five that was strictly WWE, he would 100% be in that top five. However, when I'm looking at all the promotions and the things that I'm at least invested in to follow to see what's going on, I didn't put him in my top five. But he is probably the best wrestler on their roster when it comes to in-ring work. I have no doubt about that. His character work is right up there as well. It's just, I don't think this was a year where he really did anything himself that really shined, except for put in the work. And depending on your opinion, that's all that there is, or that's not enough. And for me, it just wasn't quite enough to be in my top five when I'm talking about all of the promotions together. But phenomenal guy, phenomenal talent, and I can't argue with him being in a top five list by any means.
Aaron?
Yeah, so not in my top five either. But you can't doubt that he is one of the best workers in the business in all organizations. He's probably top five when you put all organizations together as far as a worker goes. I agree with the booking this past year. I think there were some big things on the horizon that got halted there before the summertime. But, I mean, if we're looking at the full year for him, he did lose a lot. He lost a lot whenever he was putting in a big storyline with Cody Rhodes. He lost every match they wrestled. So, I mean, he is a fan favorite. And I think he is leaning more toward the face side. I think we'll see him be a face this year. But this past year, it's kind of confusing where he was at. But again, I could see where he's in a top five somewhere, and definitely not a terrible pick at all. So that's mine.
All right. Tom, you're number three.
My number three is Sami Uso. I feel like I've got him pretty high on this list. At that number three slot, I feel like is where he ended up because he didn't carry a major championship this year. Had he carried a major championship this year, he would have probably been even higher on the list. But I just think he is what people are tuning in for. I think that his matches are always phenomenal. I mean, he's one of those talents that if given the time and the opponent, he can have a hell of a match any given night. And just with the added storylines to the bloodline that he brought, I mean, at one point the bloodline was getting a little stale. Insert Sami Zayn, and now it's hotter than it's ever been. So I really feel like he has definitely earned a spot in the top five. But for me, number three is where I place him.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say he is my number three as well. Since you mentioned him, um, just I think when he wrestled, Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania this year, we were just kind of like, oh, this should be fun. They're doing something with Sammy, and then out of nowhere, uh, here comes the rise of Sammy Uso, and I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but it has been one hell of a ride, and it's been fun. And he's definitely given off some of the best performances of his life, character wise. Match wise, he hasn't been able to let it fully go yet. I cannot wait to see where the bloodline goes. And for a guy who would probably not even crack my top 20 last year, um, to get up to my number three this year, such a great rise for him. So Sammy was also my number three. Aaron, your thoughts?
Yeah, so again, I've said a little bit about Sami Zayn earlier, but Sami Zayn is one of those guys. I think this upcoming year we may be shocked, and we may even see him in the main title picture against a Roman, possibly if they book it a little bit with some creativity here going into Mania. It could very well happen. But Sammy, I said a lot earlier about him, but you mentioned another piece of it where that match at Mania with the Jackass characters. He made it go. He's been given shit sandwiches over the years, and he always makes it taste good. If that makes sense, and he did that with that Jackass match. A lot of people thought it was kind of going to be really really goofy and terrible, but a lot of people talked about how good of a match and how good of a show that was in that match after Mania was over. It was one of the most talked about matches. So if that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does.
All right, Aaron, I think we're at your number three, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to revisit. I'm going to go with Braun Breaker at number three. Um, you all have said a lot of great things about him already, but his in-ring work is really getting better and better every match he's in. I know he's been put with some great workers, as you all mentioned. I'm really enjoying the fact that they finally are putting him and Grayson Waller together because I'm thinking Grayson Waller is going to be on some top 10s and 5s here in the next several years here soon. So it's great to see him with that. But Braun's he's beginning to become the total package. He's got pretty good mic skills, in my opinion. He sounds just like his uncle, honestly, on that mic. If you wasn't watching that TV to see who it was, and then of course he always pays homage to his family with his suits that he wears out there. He has the different wild collars like the old Steiner brothers used 2 years ago. But he's been put with some great folks, but he's also elevated himself to make sure he put on a good show throughout the year. So Braun Breaker for me, and last but not least, he held the title all but 1 month this past year.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else got anything else to say about Breaker? All right, my number two is someone who hasn't wrestled in about 6 months, but he was one of the most important people in the federation, and that's Cody Rhodes. If it was not for that injury, he could possibly be number one right now. And just the impact that he had when he came over is still not touched by anyone except for Sammy, really, right now, as far as someone having a bigger breakout year on the stage for me. And I know a lot of people are going to give me some grief because he's missed so much time. He's about to be back. And I think everyone, even when he was gone, all we've been talking about is can't wait till he gets back. Can't wait till he gets back. Because they really gave him a lot of momentum. And to see, again, as somebody coming over from AEW for the first time and to see what they actually did with him. And Vince was in charge at that point. And Vince started to push him to the moon. So Cody Rhodes for me is my number two wrestler of the year. Bill. Thoughts?
So, Cody's my guy. I'm a huge Cody Rhodes fan, huge fan of the Rhodes family. He did not make my top 5 because of the reason that you mentioned. He just wasn't there enough. And there's so many other talents that were there the full year or even more than what he was that accomplished a lot of goals and did a lot of great business. So that was the only reason that I did not have him in my top 5. However, I guarantee you he would have been at 1 or 2 on my list had he been there all year. guaranteed.
What else?
Yeah, so Cody Rhodes, I didn't put him in my top five, and honestly, the only reason is exactly the one you all mentioned. He wasn't there the full year, and that includes his AEW time too, because he had some good stuff in AEW to begin the year, and then coming over to WWE later on. If you just think about, the one of the best matches of the year, in my opinion, him and Sammy in the ladder match in AEW, hell of a match, and of course the matches he had with Seth Rollins, second to none. Working through the injury that he did. The list can go on and on, but I can just imagine, we'll never know, but what would have been the second half of the year if he wouldn't have got injured. So, I can't disagree that you put him in your top five, but I just couldn't, because of the fact of he wasn't there all year. That's the only reason.
JR?
Yeah, I'm going to add this in because we haven't really talked about that yet. But the dilemma or this storyline they were trying to build about Cody going for the title for his dad. I believe that will develop into a storyline coming in this year, but I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the same reason he didn't make my top five is the same reason that the other two left him out. But I believe if he stays healthy, and that's a big if, he will be in the top five for next year. That's a great pick. I can see where you would put him into that, but going from one promotion to another, especially in this day and age, from AEW to WWE, everybody that does that jump going forward may not have that kind of success or that momentum behind them. So I think it was a great choice.
Yeah, and I fully understood, what you guys are talking about. I just felt like his impact, outside of Sammy, no one else has had a bigger impact this year than he did, and he's actually been gone for quite a while. So that's a testament to him as well. So, Aaron, you're number two.
Yeah, my number two is actually Moxley, John Moxley. So I'm going to go with him. You guys said a lot about him earlier already, but he's had the title for at least 5 months plus this past year. And he did exactly what he's meant to do. And whenever, Punk and the situation happened with them late in the spring, early in the summer, Moxley took the ball and ran with it. He ended up being the interim champ and made him the actual champ after a little bit. But Moxley, for me, has been a workhorse for that company all year long. And I mean, that's not even discounting the years that he had before that, but we're talking about last year, and that's, you can't really leave him out of your list. And like I said, I put him up high on my list at number two. And I mean, I know it's kind of a controversial subject, but I mean, a guy that bleeds as much as he does has to be high on the list, right?
Yeah,
Definitely help.
I like Moxley a lot. Like I said, definitely in my top five, and probably going to the year I wouldn't have thought he would have, but he came back really strong. So,
Right.
Tom, you're number two.
So my number two, you're going to say I'm a hypocrite because he was gone part of the year, but it was MJF. But in his return, all of the great things that has happened to him and what he has accomplished since his return, I feel like justifies him being on the list. And I really think that he is a talent that we really need to appreciate now. He's as young as he is, and being able to do the character work that he does, getting the reactions that he does from the crowd is something special. And to be, in the spot that he's in, to come back, to win that championship, and to be such a big part of the history of AEW. When you talk about homegrown talent for AEW, he's just one of their guys. He'll always, as far as we see it now, he'll be known as one of their guys. Yeah, when his contract's up, we'll see what happens. But I got to put him high on the list, and so I did put him at number two.
You guys' thoughts on MJF?
Yeah, so MJF for me, definitely he didn't make my top five for partly the reason that Tom mentioned about not being around the full year and some controversy around that. But you can't deny what he does whenever he's out there. Probably, I mean, you can almost say second to none on the mic. And his in-ring work, we've not got to see enough of it to say whether he's bad or good. I'd like to think that he's just as good in the ring as what he is on the mic, but we haven't had a chance to see that yet. I'm hoping to see that here soon with this Iron Man match with Danielson. That's going to be the telltale sign. And just very impressed with the work he's put in this past year to better himself and even getting in better shape. So I'm definitely not hating on your pick. He wasn't in my top 5, but there's only one reason. It's the same as I did with Cody.
What are your thoughts on MJF?
He's a generational talent, as he says. If I have the opportunity, I will talk about him a little bit later and why I put him where I put him at. But he's one of those kind of wrestlers that when you hear his music hit, whether you're watching wrestling or in another room, you come in because you know that something is about to draw your attention in. And that's what the anomaly is about MJF, is that no matter what he's doing, whether he's in the ring or on the mic or there's some kind of promo or some kind of vignette or something about him, you have to know what is going to happen. And I think that is a very unique characteristic to have. And I can see exactly why he was put on that top 5 list.
He did not make my top 5 list, and here's it had nothing to do with him being gone or anything. It's because I expected him to be the champion. Like and it's kind of weird, right? Because when AEW started, you're looking at all these guys, and you're starting to see a bunch of them catch fire. I looked, and I think I remember telling Tom a year ago, okay, so we know MJF is going to be one of those people who wins the title. And it's just weird that I didn't reward him for finally doing what I thought he would do this entire time. I'm kind of like y'all. I want to see his matches. He's had some good matches, but they're always just kind of, I don't get their booking with him. I don't understand why Moxley didn't get a rematch. He was kind of cheated with the ring with Regal and everything, and they just kind of went away with that and went with Danielson instead. Maybe Moxley really does want a vacation or something like that coming up, and that's perfectly fine. I want to see a good feud with him like he had with Cody years ago, a few years back, and see where it kind of develops. Maybe Danielson is that partner for him. Didn't make my top 5 though, but I would say he would have probably been about 7 for me. But he didn't make my top 5. So JR, or is it we up to your number 2?
Yes. So I'm going to go with Aaron's pick as number 2 is John Moxley. And I'm just going to add a couple of stats in there to put in with those great points that he made about John Moxley. John Moxley did carry that company pretty much throughout that. He's very crowd interactive. But his stats are what stood out to me, put him number 2 for me. He was 26-2 and he lost twice during his singles run. He was undefeated in tag team action and undefeated. He was 10-0 and undefeated in trios action 5-0. So to add all those in and put himself in the mix and all those different elements, and then that banger of a match he had with Wheeler Yuta, which was one of the grossest cut bleeds I'd ever seen on live TV. That's why he makes my number 2.
Yeah, great pick. I can see it 100%. Why you went there. Before you give your number 1, who was one honorable mention for you?
Okay, we've talked about all these other people, but I haven't heard this name mentioned. And this is going to be a debatable pick, but mine is Hook. Hook is undefeated. He's on fire. I think he should already be more white hot than he is. But you cannot deny the things that Hook has done in the ring, the way he's built himself up. He's my honorable mention.
Tom, your honorable mention.
Mine is Braun Breaker. For all the reasons that they put him in the top 5, I can't fit them all on my list. So,
Aaron, yours?
Bray Wyatt.
Like to see him wrestle more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what his hold up is, but I guess we'll see soon.
Yeah.
My honorable mention this year was Austin Theory. I just, he was on a losing streak there, but he had the briefcase. But ever since they've kind of lost the briefcase, he's really reinvented himself, and I think he's going to be a player for some years to come as long as he keeps his head on straight. So, All right, you're number one, JR.
My number one is a man who's held the title in WWE for 870 days plus. That's approximately 2.5 years. Best storyline going in wrestling with the Bloodline. I think you know where I'm going with this. He's defeated Lesnar twice. The likes of Drew McIntyre, Riddle, Seth Rollins, and Goldberg, and this Roman Reigns.
Yep. I'll just go ahead and tell you that is also my number one pick. Just another great year by him. He was my pick last year as well. No, last year there was a lot of Kenny versus Roman people, but Roman was definitely my pick again this year for everything that you just said. And finally getting the Bloodline into the fold and adding Sammy and bringing some comedy along with his character a little bit, but also being serious. And his in-ring work is better than it's always been. So it's hard for me to go against Roman as number one. Aaron?
Yeah, so mine is Roman Reigns as well. For all the same reasons you all mentioned, but you can't deny that his matches, he just keeps getting better and better, it seems like, and even though he's not having many matches throughout the year, the ones that he is having are just top of the line for me. At times he's played that heel all year long, but at times he's almost flirting to where some folks are liking his work so much that he's getting ready to toe that line of being a face again, in my opinion. But Roman Reigns made my number one also. I can't discount what he's done and continues to do.
I was going to go with R-Truth, but now I feel like I need to go with her. No, just kidding. No, obviously, I think Reigns is hands down the best wrestler in the world right now, if you take everything into consideration. He has carried the WWE on his back with the help from some of his friends. I mean, it helps having the hot storylines with the Bloodline. I still think he would be number one without the Bloodline, but I think it really puts everything into perspective and really helps push him along, having that backdrop of his family. So, yeah, absolutely. Roman Reigns is number one for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where it goes for Mania with him, and see how it all kind of plays out here over the next month. Who knows? I mean, he could possibly be right back here once again next year. So it's good job, guys. I like a lot of the people we had different, and as always, I appreciate y'all hopping on here. And again, sorry for no video from my side. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully, it ain't just my whole computer as a whole.
The blessing on our end.
Yeah, I'm sure. What are you talking about? I could have done whatever I wanted to on this side tonight. You never know. So, but I did want to point out Aaron's shirt. I like that shirt tonight, Aaron. Like it a lot. Good looking shirt there.
Thank you.
Where'd you get that one?
Got that one at Vegas last year when SummerSlam was there. I didn't go to the SummerSlam, but I went over there when they had the shop there on site. So, pretty cool.
Yeah, are you sporting one tonight too?
Yeah, a friend of mine got me this shirt for Christmas. So it's the franchise, Shane Douglas.
There you go. Tom, no wrestling shirt on for you.
I got the shoot job shirt on tonight.
Yeah, I know people can't see me, but I'm representing our boy Gino Rivera. I've got his shirt on tonight. So,
right.
All right. Well, everyone out there, thank y'all so much. We still have a tag team coming up as well, and Will Norris will join us for that one coming up, and that'll be the end of our year-end awards, and then we'll get back to business. We got some great guests already lined up coming up for the end of January and February as well. For everyone out there, make sure y'all are doing what y'all need to do. Stay safe. Hit that subscribe button. For myself, Tom, Aaron, and JR, thank you all, and enjoy your evening.